it's a problem, and it's a problem not only in Kuwait, everywhere, but in Kuwait specifically, because everybody wants to go to a university, and in the West, not everybody goes to a university, In Kuwait, everybody goes to a university, and then there are the plumbers and all the others come from somewhere else. This is a problem that Kuwait faces. The university can address it, but cannot deal with it. That's that's the responsibility of another institutions in the country. But what we're trying to tell the students, that also it's important to go into the private sector, not just the public sector. The public sector is being saturated, and the situation cannot continue forever. But in the long run, even if you have a lower income, a lower salary from the private sector, but with time, if you prove yourself, the income will eventually surpasses the public sector that can be generated from the public sector. And what's important here is really the experience, because often when you have too many working in the public sector, then you have the places saturated. And therefore, it's true that you go there every morning and you come back in the evening, but the amount of work you do is very little. And experience comes from the work you do, not from the time you spend in a place, you see. And that's why I think unless you have something that is truly needed in the public sector, it's better that you go to private sector, because a lot go to the public sector because for convenience and for an immediate high income, which the private sector doesn't want. Doesn't want to pay a high salary for a fresh graduate. But certainly, if that fresh graduate proves him or herself, certainly they will make sure that they don't lose them by improving on their income. And this is normal. We're tackling this problem by introducing new areas. For instance, Kuwait doesn't have a school of public health. We started it. And now, within a year, it's going to start admitting students. So we're already now introducing a workforce, an eligible workforce for the country that can be of benefit for the healthcare system in Kuwait. Kuwait, for years, imports nursing staff. Kuwait needs over 20,000 nurses. Most of them, practically all of them, over 90% are imported. Now you have to introduce high quality nursing education with a bachelor degree and higher degrees. With that, you change the perception of that profession in Kuwait and attract Kuwaitis into that area. And I think that's very important. So the university is doing that. Kuwait now is starting a college of agriculture. Kuwait is a desert country. But even though it's a desert country, you should not ignore educating those who are interested in agriculture, to have a college of agriculture, and then do a lot of research, that has to do with the desert and what grows in the desert it's very important for Kuwait to have that. And I'm sure there will be a lot of Kuwaitis who are interested to go into that area. So with establishing all of those new specialties will reduce the concentration of students in the traditional areas that Kuwait doesn't need. I mean, right now, for instance, our statistics shows a lot of our students go to arts when Kuwait doesn't need many graduates of those. A lot of students goes to Islamic studies. The country doesn't need too many of those, you see. But we need to focus on the other areas that the country need. Science, for instance, is very important, and I think that can only be corrected with graduate education, like I just mentioned earlier. So these are the universities is doing to address this problem, but also to correct it is not only from the university, it has also to come from the government. You know, in business there's a supply and demand, and therefore the government cannot just treat all graduates of the university in the same way. They must reward those that are needed. And of course, we don't change the status of those who are not needed, but show that there are certain areas that are needed, and therefore you pay more for them. For instance, you have to pay more for nurses. Not only you change the perception and make them understand that a nurse is a part of the healthcare team, is an important part of the healthcare team. As a matter of fact, the healthcare team will never succeed if the nurse doesn't do the job according to what they have discussed and decided. So her work is very important. So the perception of the society has to be changed. But also, along with that, the financial remuneration of it cannot be a meager one when the financial remuneration of a physician or a surgeon is much higher. That has to be changed also, you see. And it cannot be the same as the other areas where the job market is saturated.